My name is Michelle Wallace, and I did a Jamboard on chapter 13 through chapters 12 and 16 in Miss Tucker's third hour English class. This is what is on my Jamboard, and here is my summary. It is Determination Sunday, shortly after the events of the previous few chapters. Determination Sunday is the third Sunday of every month, when the churchgoers sing their favorite hymns. Grant is in his home correcting student papers and hears a local woman, Miss Louise Boy, calling for his aunt. Tonty Lou goes to church every Sunday, but Grant hasn't gone to church since he returned from college. Lou usually doesn't bring this up, though she's an enthusiastic lover of Determination Sunday. Here are 5 pictures of which I believe relates to chapter 13, and the first one is a lady standing in the middle of the street wearing a long black dress, which Miss Louise was waiting outside the church in the middle of the street in a long black dress, calling for Lou, which is Grant's aunt. The second picture, I believe, symbols when they were all antagonizing Grant about his conversation with Jefferson, trying to get the answer that they want Grant to say. The third one, I put this picture because at the end of chapter 13, Grant could hear, when Grant was reading papers, he could hear his aunt and a few others singing a lot of church songs, and Grant couldn't help but to sit there and listen. I feel like that was his way of connecting to God. The last picture I picked because to me it was like this guy's determined about being in the military or army, whichever one he's in, and I kind of feel like this kind of is based off of Determination Sunday, which is each month. And I say this because the church had Determination Sunday, and the students would do different things like singing and telling one another how they were determined to spend eternity. I picked the last picture, which is a cross laying in the Bible. I picked this because, for the most part, even myself, you should talk to God. You should talk to God to get your answers. And in chapter 13, they always ask Grant if he talked to God about different things. And sometimes it's just to have conversations or just ask God questions that he felt needed to be asked. At the bottom with the pink sticky notes is my questions. And my first one was, why did Grant basically force himself to stop having faith after coming back from college? I asked this question because Grant was big on faith and active with the children. Out of nowhere, he just stopped believing. And it's just kind of like, why did he stop believing? And my second question was, why did Grant lie to Miss Emma about Jefferson being okay? I asked this question because who would lie about their friend being okay to others? It just makes me think that Jefferson really isn't Grant's friend. And the last question was, why would he always hide his work on Termination Sunday when his aunt came around? I asked this question because Grant shouldn't be secretive about losing faith, even though that would crush his aunt. But to me, I would rather for myself to tell my aunt than for somebody else to tell her, even though that would hurt her. And in the blue sticky note is my vocabulary words. The first one is drifting. The second one is gathering. The first one is drifting. The second one is congregation. And the last one is inconsiderate. Inconsiderate. The first one, drafting. Drafting means being carried along by currents of air or water. Congregation means a gathering of people, especially for religious services. And the last one means one who inquires, especially in a hostile manner. And in the yellow sticky notes are my quotes that I believe were important. And the first one was, he was not educated, hadn't gone to any theological school. He had heard the voice and started preaching. He was a simple, devoted believer. That came from Reverend Ambrose. I chose this quote as a powerful quote because people who were taught to be big on a religion sometimes do lose their faith because they weren't educated enough, because it was kind of forced on them. So they were forced to learn about religion. They didn't really learn it because they wanted to. So sometimes they just lose faith because they weren't determined about religion. And the second quote was, backsliders were usually the worst. Backsliders were usually worse than those who had never been converted. At least that is what people like him tried to make you believe. That came from Grant. I chose this quote as a powerful quote because people do tend to lose faith, and it, for the most part, plays a big part in their life. Like, it could sometimes put a big hole in their life. And the last one is, how do I feel this related to our biggest pet peeve journal? And I feel like today's journal related to Grant because his biggest pet peeve was people forcing him to have faith in God even though he didn't want to. And the only reason why, for the most part, people force you to believe in God is because they believe that that is the right thing you should do. And that is for chapter 13. I also have my chapter 16. This is my chapter 16 for from a lesson before 9 on my Jamboard. And at the top, I put a few quotes. And the first one is, I was supposed to have said, don't. I was being too smart. The second one was, many of the books I had to use are hand-me-downs from the white schools, Dr. Joseph. I said, and they have missing pages. How can I? Are you questioning me, Higgins? No, sir. Dr. Joseph, I was just. The third one was, a concerned animal to strike quickly out of fear, a trait inherited from his ancestors in the deepest jungle of the blackest Africa. Yes, yes, that he can do. But to plan, gentlemen of the jury. No, gentlemen, this school. Excuse me. And the fourth one was the humiliation I had to go through going into the man's kitchen. The hours I had to wait while they ate and drank, socialized before they would even see me. And the last one was, I tried to decide whether I should act like the teacher that I was or like the nigger that I was supposed to be. And in the middle right here is from chapter 6, and it states that in preparation of Superintendent Dr. Joseph Morgan's annual visit, Grant Wiggins drills his students in sitting and standing in unison. He makes sure they bathe and wear their best clothes. The superintendent, a fast, slow man who was overwhelmed by his few responsibilities, finally shows up one day. He communicates by grunting and repeatedly calls Grant Higgins, despite Grant's correcting him. And right here are my 3 vocabulary words, which is advisory, alliant, and artificial. The first one means a person, group, or force that opposes or attacks opponent, enemy. The second one is alliant, which means cause someone to feel isolated or estranged. And the last one is artificial, which means clever trick or stratagem, a cunning, crafty device, or expectant will. And right here are my questions, which says, why did they treat Grant the way that they did? Why did they want Grant to fail? And why did his lawyer basically set him up for failure? And down here's the way that I feel, which is, I felt